last video, you saw I took out the transmission. We're gonna do more to that, clean it up, make it look all pretty before we put it in. But in this video, we're gonna be taking apart the old clutch, putting in the new one. So, to the hands manual. First we'll start by taking out the slave cylinder and then the clutch housing. The slave cylinder is here on the driver's side. Looks like 15s probably, two 15s. Don't need to disconnect any hydraulic lines, it looks like. So I'm just gonna take it off, let it hang somewhere, and should be good. All right, got the clutch slave off. Whatever this stuff is, it's like fiber. So much of it. This slave cylinder had a little dust boot. You just pop it out, covered. So I wonder if really it's just this throw out, or the clutch fork, maybe the throw out bearing, whatever went. I think it's just this. Maybe the clutch is good, but I'm still gonna replace the clutch either way. So now I gotta take out this clutch housing, or the bell housing as everyone else knows it. I'm taking off these bell housing bolts. I'm just gonna call it bell housing even though Haynes manual says clutch housing, bell housing. I had to take off the bolts facing the other way for this the shield, whatever it's called. It's basically like a big dust shield for this bell housing. So there's 2 bolts on either side, just like the engine and transmission bolts were. And then there's 2 on the top, it looks like. Possibly 1 more in the middle. But looks like that's all I need to get off. Here's the bell housing area. I'm gonna take it out from another car to get a better look at it, but here's the clutch, or the pressure plate I should say. Here's more of this debris stuff that we saw in the last video. It's way back there. Okay, this might actually just be clutch material. Do I have to remove the starter to get this out? Oh. It looks like we got the pressure plate now, and then we can take a look at the clutch. You can get a little sneak peek there. So my big concern is what all this stuff is. So throughout this, I'm gonna try to figure it out. My first thought was clutch, maybe some clutch and oil, but that's a lot. That can't be clutch. Possibly the slave cylinder, as we saw earlier. But look at this throwout bearing. I mean, it's destroyed. You can see this silver metal stuff everywhere in here. So it looks like a lot of this material is this, but I'm not sold that all of it was just from this. Although, this is absolutely destroyed. The clutch fork looks okay. I'm gonna hope that it's not damaged, because that would really suck. The next part on the Haynes manual says I need to support the clutch disc with the clutch alignment tool. So I gotta open up the new clutch. So I figured might as well show you guys what I'm throwing in here, replacing this old beat up clutch system. So it is the LUK Luck, I guess, clutch. I saw a couple comments on forums saying they were pretty good, so here's the pilot bearing and clutch alignment tool. This is what we're going to be needing. I'll go ahead and show you. This is the throwout bearing. It looks a lot different from the old one. And this pressure plate. I don't want to touch the clutch material with my dirty hands, but there's a glimpse at the inside of the clutch. So it's just a stock replacement. Nothing fancy, but these stock clutches are actually known to be really good, like power-wise. They can handle power. Alright, so let's get this out. Oh, it even comes with some lube. Let's get this out and get ready to remove this pressure plate. Alright, we got the pressure plate here. Got my clutch alignment tool. I'm gonna try to look at my camera because I don't really have a good angle of this, but just gotta line it up and slide it in. There we go. So clutch alignment tool's in. Now I undo the bolts. It's like one here, there, 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 there. It's like 6 bolts. Okay. It's gonna spin when I do it. It's only torqued about 25 to 35 pounds, but it's gonna spin. I'm gonna have to get creative on how I'm gonna hold it, but it's doable. Now to stop it spinning, I shoved a wrench in here and put it against some sort of bracket. That's what's stopping it from moving. I kind of did it on accident. I wanted to use a wrench and then like I started spinning and it worked, so I didn't touch it. I just went around and loosened all 6 of them. Now I'm going to use my electric ratchet to take them off one by one. You want to take them off evenly to avoid warping in the flywheel, I'd assume. Ugh. Alright, before I look at the clutch, first look at the flywheel. Not too bad. I see a little bit of marks, but doesn't look that bad at all. Pilot bearing in there. Definitely looks newer, but yeah, it doesn't look anything wrong with it, but I'm gonna replace it since I have it anyways. I just rubbed against the clutch. Oh my. This thing is destroyed. Oh, are you kidding? I think it's safe to say a lot of that material is this. That thing, oh my. Oh. And here's a look at the pressure plate. Definitely some marks on it. Oh man, after seeing that clutch, I think it's worth it to get the flywheel resurfaced. Or maybe just do a light little touch up. But here's your problem. Here's the new one. Look at all of it. This is worn past the rivets. Like even some of the rivets are wearing down. Let me flip it over. I'm trying not to touch the clutch material because my hands are all dirty. Brand new one, absolutely destroyed one. This is where all this stuff came from. It's clear now. That's insane. Look, this one has like 2 layers to it. This one, absolutely mangled. That is insane. So to assess the damage, clutch, obviously, absolutely destroyed, mangled. The throwout bearing as well, the whole bearing material destroyed, 808. Possible the clutch fork needs replacement. Probably not, probably be able to salvage that. It looks like the slave cylinder went bad. I'm going to keep doing research, clean it up. Maybe it just got filled with gunk, but about $30 to replace. So kind of leaning on towards just replacing it anyways. Who knows how old it is. I'm pretty sure it's been replaced at some point because this car has 150,000 miles or more. So, and then from taking the car apart, we destroyed the second gear sensor. You can't really see it, but when I took it out, it fell in half in the transmission. So I got to go to a junkyard, pick that up. I got to put this back together. I don't think that's actually messed up. And then this air hose for the exhaust, I broke it in half. So I'm just going to buy like a rubber hose. I don't think this gets too hot. because I don't see any discoloration like this. So I think just a rubber hose will be enough. Rubber hose and some hand hose clamps. But let's see, other than that, that's it for the damage. So it's morning now. I ran my fingers across the flywheel, and the inside edge, just around the circle, feels rough, and it should feel really smooth. So I think it's worth getting it resurfaced. Plus, a lot of that clutch material has ended up behind the flywheel. So I'm gonna take off the flywheel. I got my impact gun here. I'm gonna take it off and just try to get as much of that clutch stuff out of there. And we'll see if the rear main seal's leaking, but it doesn't look like it is. So we'll take a look behind the flywheel was. Here it looks like this is the crankshaft. Looks like the main seal's back here. Possibly it's leaking. I'll have to figure out exactly where the rear main seal is. Because if it's leaking, might as well replace it now. There's definitely oil here, so maybe worth a shot. I'll investigate some more. Some of the clutch materials in the starter that could have been bad for starting it. I was going to order a rear main seal and replace it, but this car is a two-piece rear main seal. There's the top part like a normal, and then the bottom one that goes into the oil pan gasket. Because I know there's an oil leak. You can see all this oil. This is at the front of the engine. It is caked under this K-member. The suspension stuff is caked in oil. But this, like looking at it now that the rear main seal is exposed better, it definitely looks like the leaks from the front coming down. It looks like it's still happening. It's most likely some sort of hose or something is leaking, not the valve cover. So I did fix the valve cover leak, but that wasn't the only leak. This is definitely pressurized oil that's leaking. So I don't really need to worry about that yet. That will be a different time. So today I got the flywheel for the Corvette resurfaced at a machine shop. They're located in Riverside. They did pretty good work. They were called Arlington Machine, something like that. They were pretty good. You can see all the little hatch marks. It's pretty cool. I've never had anything machined before, but it looks good. I went to the junkyard, tried to pick up that second gear overdrive sensor, but the transmission was gone. It was gone, so that was a bust. But I did pick up one of the flywheel bolts, since it was easy to get to since the transmission was already gone. So I'm ready to start reassembling. Okay, so I just got the broken exhaust stud out. I'll have to show you guys the tool, but here's the tip of it. So here's the stud. You can see where it broke. This tool just clamps on and then spins it off freely. So now we're in business. Alright, now to work on putting the new clutch in the car. Alright, so I'm going to take out the pilot bearing. I'll have to get creative, but looks like a lot of people like to use bled. Probably some sort of socket or something that fits in there, and just use the bled as a hydraulic source to pull it out. Actually, guess it's easier with the flywheel off. Alright then. Alright, so this is the old pilot bearing. Here's the new one. Now they don't seem to be directional or anything. line them up. It looks like they match. So we're just gonna see what happens when I slide it in. Alright, resurfaced flywheel's in. Got this dust shield tucked behind it. The bolts are just snug right now all around. I'm gonna pull up the torque spec. Alright, just got it all torqued. These heads are American size, but I only have metric stuff for 1/2 inch drives for my torque wrench. So I got it torqued to about 66 foot-pounds. Alright, so I got the clutch here. Trying not to touch the material, but I'm going to put the alignment tool in it. And then I'm going to slide the clutch up to the flywheel, putting it into the pilot bearing. Something like that. There. Okay, so I got my pressure plate bolts. Got a little mark on the clutch alignment tool. Get my bolts out, ready to be used. And then I put my pressure plate right up to it. Alright, got everything finger tightened. Just gonna do a quick little tighten with the ratchet. Trying to go as even as possible. Just finished cleaning up the transmission. A little bit of brake clean and engine degreaser from AutoZone. And then I had a couple detail brushes and some rags to wipe it down. But now it's not caked in oil. Alright, so the pressure plate gets torqued to about 35 foot-pounds. Set my torque wrench, and then just go around in a crisscross pattern. Alright, so I have the clutch housing back on. It's just snug, not torqued. So I spent a lot of time trying to put the transmission in, and it was coming up a few inches short, or about an inch short from bolting up to the engine. Realized I had to take it all apart. Found out the pilot bearing, when I installed it, wasn't perfectly straight, wasn't in there all the way, so just my bad. So I got a new one, got this little 1/2 inch extender thing, and I'm just hammering it in. And it's almost in there all the way. So I got it in. You can see the pilot bearing needs to be flush with that line on the crank. I don't know if it's a crank, it's the outside of the crank maybe, something like that. It needs to be flush with that line. When I first did it, I didn't know. I only pushed it in not even a quarter of the way in. Just pure, I didn't know. I finally got the transmission in. It didn't take that long once the pilot bearing was actually installed correctly. You can see it's all lined up. I just used the electric ratchet to get it snug. So I'm about to go and torque it all. Please, I can't thread this bolt. Got the transmission in, and the C-beam way back there. This was like our 50th millionth time putting the transmission in this car in just one clutch job. So So when I was putting it in the drive shaft, the U-joint kind of exploded on itself. All the little needles, some of them cracked. So I picked up this new one. This one needs to be greased. I don't have a grease gun anymore, so I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do. And just like that, I got the distributor back in. And when I got the car, the wires were pretty all over the place. I mean, it's not perfect, but it looks a lot better than it did before. Before they were just all like a rat's nest under here. Let me show you the other side, but basically, not too bad. I just got to figure out what I'm going to do about greasing the U-joint, and then it's just the exhaust. There's little wiring for the transmission sensors and the shift linkage I need to adjust, and that's about it. Alright, so I got the new U-joint into the drive shaft. Basically the old one fell apart, so I had to get the new one in, and I just decided to replace one instead of both of them. Yeah, I know, preventive maintenance, but you know what, it's not broke. I'm not gonna worry about it. At least it's not that bad to get out anyway. So, and then I took it to a shop to get it greased, so it's all greased now and it's ready to go in. Alright, so I got the drive shaft in. Right now the shifter doesn't really do anything right now. It's not hooked up in the bottom. Hopefully you guys can see. Not really, but the arms down there aren't connected to anything. You can see in the Haynes manual. Here's the three. They're not connected right now, so I gotta connect them, and then I have to adjust it so like it knows what gear it goes in. Because I had to, or I accidentally moved them. I had to blah 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 that. But the Haynes manual says, let's see, adjustment. And I gotta take out, I'm just gonna follow this. So I gotta take out this driver's seat and a couple other center console stuff. In the next clip, I'll show you guys what I did up top, but basically, if you ever take out the transmission, you gotta adjust it. This is how it looks from upside down point of view. This is neutral in the transmission. Basically, everything is straight up. And this one's a little to the front of the car. So now I just have, they have these little washers and clips, so I'm just gonna lock these all into place. So I had to take out the driver's seat. I was following the Haynes manual a little bit to adjust it so neutral would work again. So I took off all this stuff. It's all loose right now, but under here is where the three shift arms are. But basically my problem was just the transmission was in gear, even though the shifter wasn't. So once I got the transmission, I had my dad come out and help me, and we got it them both into neutral, and then it started working, and now it's all good. I'll show you real quick. Let me sit down. You can see there's first, second, third, fourth, and then you gotta go up into reverse. Now it's kind of hard. I would just assume that's because there's no fluid in here, but not too bad. So now I'm going to get the clutch pedal working, and then I'm going to start up the car and make sure I don't hear this loud throttling noise or anything like that. Alright, after the help of my dad, got the slaves bled. Initially I thought the slave cylinder was bad because the piston and it wasn't moving anymore. Turns out I just didn't have enough fluid into the master cylinder reservoir. So yeah, make sure you keep an eye on that. So now the pedal actually has some feel to it. I'm going to plug in all the sensors for the 4+3 transmission right now. It's pretty easy, like they're pretty easy to figure out where they go. The only thing is the sensor over here broke, if you remember, so I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do with it, but I think I'm just gonna leave it unplugged. That way the overdrive kind of becomes more manual. Alright, so I got the overdrive cooling lines hooked up, the throttle valve cable hooked up, and I just gotta hook up this shield from the bell housing I got to do that, mount this, the wiring's all hooked up, so everything will be good after I do that. And then I just gotta fill up the transmission and the overdrive unit with the fluid that I lost. Alright, this trans takes 80W90 and it's 2 quarts. I got a little fill spout, whatever it's called. So in the last video I said this is the drain, this is the check and fill. So I'm gonna undo this, I'm gonna check. Fluid needs to be, I gotta add fluid into it until it just starts coming out. So I got my bucket here to catch that fluid. So I'm gonna take this off and add fluid. So I got it off. I figure I'll show you guys what it looks like on the inside. It's pretty cool. You don't really get to see this stuff. It's kind of hard to show you, but you can see some of those gears, synchros, all that. I don't really know much, but it's just cool to see what little we can see. Alright, add fluid now. Alright, the manual transmission is in. And then here's the overdrive. That's the fill and the check. It's basically as soon as it starts pouring out, that's enough. So I'm gonna fill out the overdrive and then we'll be ready to start this car. There it is. So, from doing a clutch job, somehow I got the the passenger side exhaust manifold out. I was replacing the studs, as you saw in the last video, that one of them broke. And then this one broke where it's so small my little extractor tool can't fit there. So I've been trying to drill it out and I'm almost done. I just gotta charge the drill up more because it ran out of battery. Here you can see it's gone. And then in the meantime, while the drill's charging, I just got the exhaust hooked back up. Just the portion after the catalytic converter. So you can see we got that. So once the drill's fully charged up, I'm gonna go back to taking out that stud. And then the exhaust goes on, and then the car's all good to go. Alright, so I ended up buying a tap and die set from Harbor Freight, a bunch of different left-hand drill bits. I went through a lot of drill bits, but I finally think I got to an okay solution. So let's see, this is a good one. This is the jank but good enough. So this is the normal one's a N10 by 1.5. This is a M8.125 that I had lying around, and because I didn't drill perfectly straight to get the stud out, part of the stud's still in there, I used a tap to tap it, the threads in, because it was perfect size for this. It's a little crooked, but it seems to be holding the seal just fine. So I think I'm all good to go. And the garage is empty because the Corvette is outside. So I didn't show you guys me putting the exhaust on because it was actually it went pretty smoothly, but then I went to start it up and you could hear the throwout bearing, I believe it was, because you could just hear it chattering, like some clutch chatter, and I got really scared. I thought maybe the transmission was gonna have to come out again, and also the pedal was really soft, so I bled it a ton of times, and now it's finally working. I've taken it on 2 test drives now, got about 30 miles on this new clutch, and it works great. I won't I won't show a video of me driving, maybe in a future video, but that's basically how you replace the clutch in this Corvette. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sure this is a long video, so thank you, and look for more videos about this new '85 Corvette.